Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lau with Kenshan Crafts, and today I am going to share with you guys just my final thoughts on the pens back from March of my currently inked. And so I know this is long overdue, but just wanted to have this video up for you guys so you can get a feel for my experience with them. And these were the 11 pens from March, and I will be using the same grading system from my January pens review. So let me just put these aside. So I've already written down the pens. I will be grading the color of the ink, like if it was nice and legible, if it's a color that I enjoy writing with. That second one is a little more subjective, but in terms of legibility, that's where I will be grading under the color section. And then the flow is just a combination of the pen's nib and feed as well as the flow of the ink. And then the comfort will just be grading based on how nicely the pen felt in my hands as I was writing, and if I was able to write for longer periods of writing sessions without getting hand cramps or whatnot. So, and I have been using a tripod grip for writing a lot more recently, and I think the moment I went back to my quadrupod grip, it just didn't feel comfortable, and I also felt like it was novel to me. Like it's so weird because I wrote my whole life in the quadrupod grip, and that's always like strained my hands and fingers. But now that I've been writing with a tripod grip, I do really enjoy the comfort and the ease of writing that it's giving me. And so going back to quadrupod grip has been just so difficult, which is great. I should be writing in a tripod grip for better. I mean, like, just for me, it's like the tripod grip does work for me. And it has reduced cramps a lot, and I am finding that I'm slowly writing better and better in a tripod grip. So, and the reason I brought that up is because tripod grip, quadrupod grip, however you grip your pen, does play a huge role in the comfort of the pen. So the first one here is my TWSBI Diamond 580 ALR in Punch Pink. It's like a red, but it's called Punch Pink. And I had inked this up with Diamine Firefly. So the TWSBI pen is very comfortable, unposted, and you can't post these TWSBI Diamond 580s anyways. It will mess with the piston knob in the end here. So I really like how the TWSBIs feel in my hand, and they also do write comfortably. Sad thing in March, this is a beautiful color, but I had bought a lot of Leonardos at that time, and so more of my interest kind of went towards the Leonardo pens, and I didn't write so much with my TWSBIs. They're great pens, but like they were just not as flashy and nice to look at and write with. But back on track, the color of this ink is actually like, it's very legible and it's really pretty. The ink is really nice. So I have an example here of a journal entry that I wrote with Firefly. You can see the shimmer is not that pronounced, but it's definitely there, and it writes so smoothly out of the TWSBI, and I feel like my handwriting looks pretty nice with it. Some pens, like the nibs and ink, I tend to write not as great in certain pens, but this one I do like it, and it wrote really nicely. So of the times that I was able to use this, I did have a nice experience with it. So this pen, the color, I would rate the color of Diamine Firefly, let's see, like a 9. It's a nice, vibrant color, very easy to read. And this is a medium nib. This TWSBI's medium nib is slightly, well, mine at least is slightly on the like the finer end of a medium, and so the lines are a little thinner, and you don't really see the beauty of the color as much. But the color itself is gorgeous, so I give it a 9. The flow is a 10. For a shimmer ink, it comes out of here with it so easily. I've never had a hard start. It like never skipped on me, so like that's amazing for a shimmer ink. The comfort of the TWSBI, I'm gonna give the TWSBI a like a 9. The one thing I don't like about these TWSBI Diamine 580s is this part here. It's got all these tiny little ridges because it's anodized aluminum. It's the AL-R version, so this section here just feels weird. It's like it's supposed to be non-slippery, but it's slippery for me. The pen itself, super balanced, really nice weight in my hand. So great TWSBI pen, great color combo. This is a really good pen. So 9, 10, 9 overall. The next pen is my Lamy AL-Star Luxe Rose Gold. And this is the LX version, which is the same as the aluminum All-Stars, except that the clip here is the color of the finish. I know a lot of people say that the Lamy AL versus the Lamy Luxe nibs, they feel the same, but I find that this medium LX nib writes 10 times smoother than my regular AL All-Star nibs. So this one wrote beautifully. So this is an example of my Lamy Luxe Rose Gold with Dominant Industry Romania Red. So this Romania Red dried a gorgeous, beautiful, like almost burgundy, but like there's still red underneath it. And like with the very light shading parts of it, you can see the red, but the darker shades is more of a burgundy brown. And so this is a beautiful, beautiful red. And like I said, this nib is just sublime, and the color is just beautiful. Like you can see that it's almost black. So like, you know, this would be a nice red black if you want to write in a professional setting. So I think that this combination was a winner. You know, it's really nice. I don't typically like writing with Lamys in terms of like aesthetics and stuff like that, but they do write nicely. For beginner pens, they're really good. The one negative thing, the biggest negative thing I would say about the Lamy pens is that because it's a snap cap, it doesn't keep the nib from drying out as good as, or as well as other pens can. Like there are other snap caps that keep the nib from drying better than this one. There are days where I don't write for like, you know, about a week, and it'll have a little bit of a hard start. So but that's not a major issue. After a couple seconds, then, you know, the ink flows down just fine. So there's that issue for the Lamys. But in terms of just grading this pen and ink combo, I did finish it, so I don't have any more of that ink in here. So I'm going to be using my Pilot Custom 823 in Smoke. It's just black ink, and I will be writing down my grading for this. So the color of the ink was definitely a 10. It was a beautiful, beautiful, well-behaving ink. And the flow, 10. This Lamy feed, nib, ink worked so well together. And the comfort of Lamy is like, now that I've been using the tripod grip, the comfort, I will give it a 9. Like, it's not terrible. The only thing is it is kind of a lighter pen. I like my pens a little bit hefty, but this is the AL version, so it's not terribly light. I am able to write longer sessions with this. So the comfort will be a 9. The next pen is my TWSBI Eco White Rose Gold. Here it is. So just got a little bit of the Pelikan Edelstein Golden Beryl left in there. Now again, same with my other TWSBI. It has a shimmer ink in here, and I haven't used it for probably almost 3 months now, and it's I know this is bad practice. Like I'm not that great at cleaning out my pens unless like I want to use it again, and so it's been in here for 3 months, yet it writes so beautifully. Like you can see here, it's still wet and it still writes so nicely. I love that so much about my TWSBIs. The ink itself is gorgeous, especially on paper without any like lines. Because this is a lighter ink, it's a yellow with some hints of orange. It's a little harder to see. You can see here, like it's super light. And the Golden Beryl ink, the shimmer doesn't really show because I have a TWSBI medium, or I'm using it in a TWSBI medium, and you'd think that a medium can show shimmer off pretty well too, but like TWSBI nibs, TWSBI medium nibs are kind of a little dry, and they don't, they're not also as thick as most mediums. If you're using shimmer inks, they don't come off as thick because shimmer inks are slightly drier. But despite all of that, the color is super nice, super well shading, well behaving. Like it's legible if you look close and look a little closer. So because of that, I'm gonna give the ink a 9. I would give it an 8 because it's not that legible in some cases, but for most cases it's very legible. And so I'm gonna give the ink a 9, and the flow out of this TWSBI a 10. It's no hard starts, nothing. For the fact that it's a medium and it's a thinner medium, it behaved so well. The comfort of this pen is really nice too. It doesn't require you to be in any certain grip because the grip section is circular. So I'm going to give this a 9. Really, really nice. Okay. That is, again, my TWSBI Eco White Rose Gold. Very classy looking pen. All right, my next pen is the Lamy AL-Star Blue Green. This is a medium nib with Ferris Wheel Press Morningside Mint. As you can see here, sometimes, so it's the same issue that I have in here as my other Lamy LX. It doesn't keep the nib as wet as it could, and therefore the ink tends to oxidize or evaporate a little bit, and the color changes to a darker tone if I don't use it for like a couple of days at a time. And so Morningside Mint is actually very, very light, of a minty green, but sometimes because of the oxidation and vibration of the ink, it becomes a much darker looking green ink, which I don't mind at all. This is really nice. And so I did have to re-ink this because I used up all the green ink. So here's an example of how light this ink is. You can barely like see that, like it's just super light. I know that the camera's not picking it up so well, but you can see it's a nice light minty green. And then on here, it's much darker. Can you see that? Morningside Mint is just like almost like a mud green from my camera. But yeah, so this is how it actually naturally looks. It's very pale, very light. Then here is another example of that. When I start writing with it, it's a little darker, and then as I keep on writing it, it gets lighter. And then the flow of this ink is super, super dry. And so you can see here, some parts are just so light, and then other parts are a lot wetter. And the wetter parts is actually because of the nib and pen. In most pens that are medium and finer, you'll see more of this kind of, this section here where it's super light, and up here where it's darker, you don't see that as much. I like this nib and pen combo a lot. So for the color, I like the color in general, I'm gonna give it a 7 because it is very light, very pale, and this very dark 7 right here, you will not see this in most pens. The flow for this pen and ink combo is actually, I would say, like a 9. Okay. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 just because I know the flow of this ink is so bad. But it's actually never had hard starts, so like I would give it a 9.5. We'll give it a 9.5. And then the comfort, like most Lamys, it's actually not that comfortable actually. Like, even though it forces you into a tripod grip, your middle finger kind of like is in a weird position because underneath is like a circle. So, or underneath is smooth and doesn't have like the same facets here. So I will give the Lamys, like, for comfort, I'm gonna give this an 8.5. Will probably be the same for that one. Deluxe up there, 8.5. The next pen is my Lamy AL-Star Iguana Blue. This one had Mirror Mirror of Moraine. This pen is absolutely gorgeous and always feels so good to open and write with. And it has a perfect weight for me. It is the perfect length, and it just looks classy, like the whole thing together. This is my favorite kind of blue. It's like a teal leaning very blue. So for this pen, I give the color of the ink an 8 because it is very light. And kaweco's, did I even say the name of this? So the Kaweco All Sports, they write a bit on the wet side, which is nice. And so because of that, I'm able to see this ink color much better. So I give the ink an 8. I love the color though. It's a really nice, bright spring teal, but it's a little light. The flow is a 10. Easy 10. There was no hard starts, nothing of that sort, no skipping. The ink is well behaving. The pen's flow is great. The comfort of this pen, I will give it a 9.5. I'm not sure why I wouldn't give it a 10, but like 9.5 is really great. 10 is the perfect feeling for me. So 9.5, it is very comfortable for me. If you have smaller hands, this is really nice. It's got that heft that you want because it's aluminum, but it's small enough for a tripod grip to write very comfortably for long sessions. And so I will just show an example of that ink in action, and like you can see next to Morningside Mint Mirror Mirror of Moraine, like the difference in greens. This is a tealer green and this is a minty green, but as you can see here, it's super light. It's very light, but like where, you know, like my eyes can see this legibly without it being too pale or too light. I absolutely loved writing with this pen. It's so nice. The next pen and ink combo is my Leonardo Memento Zero Parisa Maldives. This one has always gotten 10s across the board, and I will say it's got 10 across the board today too. It was inked up with Kobe Suidosuji Marche Blue, which is a beautiful, beautiful turquoise. It does lean a little bit on the darker side of turquoise, and I think that's the case because my nib is such a nice juicy flex fine or an elastic fine. So the color of this ink, a 10, a beautiful, beautiful 10. I love blues that are in this shade of like a sky blue mixed with some green. And the flow is a 10, and the comfort a 10. I write with this pen unposted in the tripod grip, and even if I post this in a tripod grip, like it's still super comfortable. But it is very back weighted, so it's just lovely in my hand. It's super smooth, but like my hand rests on the grip, the smooth grip plus the threads, which kind of help with keeping my hands locked in here without slipping. So absolutely loved writing this pen. I always do. And like the ink is actually darker than it coming out of pens than like I thought it would. So here is an example of the ink Suidosuji Marche Blue out of the Leonardo. I must have been writing fast. I don't really think this is my best handwriting here. So it's next to this color here is Dominant Industry Lake, which is a teal, and Suidosuji Marche Blue is this turquoise. So you can see the difference if you can. The cameras might not pick it up so well, but this is a turquoise, this is a teal. I do apologize. I will, once I edit the video, I will, look at it and see if it actually picked up the way I see it. So hopefully you guys can see the difference. But yeah, so beautiful, beautiful turquoise. Love this ink. The next pen is my Lamy 2000 with a fine nib, and this had Milky, Troublemaker Milky Ocean in it. This was interesting. It was the very first ink I inked up in my Lamy 2000, and I didn't really care for this pen. Like, the pen body is just classic, simple, but it wasn't like extraordinary classic. Say, for me, I prefer the TWSBI's classic look to this look. And so I got it in fine nib. The fine nib is nice. It's the perfect size for what I like to write. But it was my first time working with Troublemaker Milky Ocean, and it did not feel so good coming out of this pen. However, the pen did write really well. And the ink is gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful periwinkle, periwinkle blue purple. Oh my gosh, I just love the color. I loved how the pen wrote. I just didn't like the flow. It was very, like, I felt like it dragged upon the paper, even though like it wrote so well. So the Lamy 2000, like, it is as good as they say it is. And there was a little bit of a sweet spot for me. Like, I know some people don't really have that sweet spot. Some people just, the whole pen is great for them. Mine had a tiny bit of a sweet spot, but maybe that was because of the ink combination as well. So I did remove the ink from here, and I put in a Pilot ink, which made this nib so much smoother. But in terms of the Milky Ocean, the color of the ink, I love it so much, and it's legible. So I will give it a 9.5, only because it is a little bit on the light side. It's a periwinkle. I gave the color a 9.5 because it's beautiful. I love it. The flow, the flow of Milky Ocean in the Lamy 2000, I'm gonna give it a 7. Yeah, it was frustrating to write with. And the comfort of this pen is not bad. It's a little lighter than I expected, just because Macrolon, I thought that Macrolon would be heavier, but it's a nice weight, and posted is also very nice. So, but the comfort, I'm gonna give it a like a 9. It's not bad. It's a very, very good. Unposted in my tiny hands with a tripod grip is really nice. The next pen here is my BENU Talisman Edelweiss, and I had Dieman Snowy Mountain Sunset. I have a fine BENU nib, and this is the Snowy Mountain Sunset. It's super pale, coming out of a fine nib, but it's still legible. But coming out of the broad nib, it's much more legible, and just you can see all the shading and the shimmer much better through the broad nib. And if we zoom in closer, you can see that shading. It's super gorgeous. And then over here I wrote in regular print, and you can see how the ink pools differently, showing all that shading qualities. And because it's a really wet BENU broad nib, most of it was legible. If it's any other broad nib or pen with a medium nib, you most likely will not see such nice legible writing. But this is how Dieman looks, and I absolutely loved the color. I would consider Dieman Snowy Mountain Sunset as a dusty pink, and it should have some like really beautiful teal outline, but I didn't really see it in my writing, so I was a little sad to see that. So for the color, I'm gonna give this color like coming out of the pen, right? Like I didn't see the full beauty and glory of that ink. I will give this an 8 for the color. For the flow, it was still even dry. It was still dry even in the BENU pen. So I'm gonna give this flow with the BENU an 8. It's not terrible. It did write pretty well, but it did not flow completely smoothly out of that feed. And then the comfort of the BENU pen, it's super light, but like it's light and balanced. Unlike the Pilot E95S, that one is small and light. This one is big and light, and so like it feels a little more balanced. So for the comfort of this pen, I'm gonna give this an 8.5 because it is a little bit on the light side. The next pen is my Fountain Pen Revolution Urushi art pen. Now, I don't know if this is actual Urushi, but if the lacquer is Urushi, that's nice. But it was a cheaper pen. This is about $100, and most Urushi pens are up there in the $1,000s. This pen, I just really liked the design of it and the sparkles, but it didn't really catch my eye and interest me to write with as much. And I think a big part of that is because of the nib as well. Like this is it's a flexible nib, but it didn't feel so good to flex this nib. It is a steel nib, so I think that's also a big factor into why it didn't feel so good. And also the ink didn't really feel so magical coming out of this pen. But it is a nice blue-black, so this is Ferris Wheel Press Stroke of Midnight. It's a beautiful color, absolutely beautiful, but out of this nib it didn't feel so great. It wrote nice, but it wasn't amazing. So like it's a blue-black, it's got a little bit of red sheening to it with some silver shimmers. So if you put this in a broader nib, like a medium or broad, I think you will love this color a lot more. I think I would like it a lot more. So in terms of color, the ink itself, like I'm not really a blue-black person. I'm gonna give this an 8. The flow was okay. I'd probably give this flow an 8 because like there wasn't an issue too much with the flow until like I stopped using the pen, but that's an issue with the pen, not the ink. And I think that if I don't use it for a couple of days, like a week at a time, then the ink does dry up a bit. So and the comfort of this pen is an 8. The next pen was that I was still using back in March was my Pilot Custom 823 medium in the amber finish. This pen is extremely smooth and just buttery smooth, so wonderful. It is a little broad, so for most writing, most of my writing, I tend to like mediums and fine nibs, but I absolutely enjoy writing with this one. And so I paired it with steeped umber, and I think I'm going to keep steeped umber in here for a while. There's not a lot left, so I will do a cleaning of this soon, but like the Pilot Custom 823 isn't meant to be cleaned that often. So I'm okay with the ink being in there, and I will just do a quick flush at some point, and then just re-ink it with brown for whenever I need a brown. The color of steeped umber is just magnificent. A 10. I love it so much. It shades really well with this medium nib, and it's also very legible. And the flow is a 10. This Pilot Custom 823 is just perfect for very, very dry inks, and then very wet inks. It also comes out of here just fine without like being a complete fire hose or whatnot. And the comfort of this pen, it is extremely well balanced, unposted, and if you post this pen, it is still very well balanced. In a tripod grip, it's perfect. In a quadrupod grip, it's perfect. Tripod grip is a little heavy in the back. And it's the perfect length unposted. Comfort is a 10. I don't find myself cramping at all with this pen when I write longer sessions. It's just an amazing pen. And I don't mind cigar shapes. They're not the type of pens I go to right away, but it's just the look of this pen is so classic. Like, I sacrifice the fact that I don't really care for cigar shapes for this pen, because everything else kind of knocks it off the ballpark. So, let's see. So, I mean, I've already written with this pen in the past, and so you can see here great legibility and a little bit of shading here and there. An ink that just has a tiny bit of character to it, aside from just being a brown. A perfect pairing for like custom 823. And then the last pen is my Sailor Pro Gear Slim Blue Green Nebula. I had inked this up with Wearing Gold's Dewy Starlight. It's one of the most beautiful inks out there. Let me see here. It's like a grayish teal. Let's see. So here is a journal entry. I started writing it in cursive, and then I went to writing it in regular print because the music nib in my Sailor Pro Gear Slim is super hard to write in calligraphy or in cursive because it's such a thick nib, thick tipping, and so I kind of like writing it in this block form of print. Like, the music nib has a really, really generous, nice wet flow, but this ink was so hard to write with. I have used other inks in this music nib, and it writes perfectly. And like regular dry inks that have no shimmer work just fine out of this music nib and feed. But I had to write over my letters twice in order for it to even be legible. So that just means that this ink was so dry that it took such a long time to go down the feed and through the nib. This was the most unpleasant writing experience. However, the color came out so nice. I absolutely love how this looked in my journal entry. Like, it goes really well with purple. It's like a light gray teal, like I said, and the shimmer is gold, but it's been a while, so I think the shimmer has dried up and I don't really see it that much here. Not sure if you guys can see it through my camera. Like, you can see the shimmer of the gold in my stickers, but not this ink. If you go to my Instagram, I have a little video of this that kind of shows off how beautiful the shimmer is. But right now the shimmer is kind of gone, and it's just the nice flat gray teal here, which I still love. I think that if I used this ink in a much wetter stub or broad nib with a very generous feed, this ink would have been much better. But in swatches, Dewy Starlight is an amazingly beautiful color. So for legibility, this ink is a little light, and the color is a beautiful color. So I like the color, but it is light. So I'm gonna give this ink color a 7.5 in terms of like legibility. In swatches, it's beautiful, but we're not talking about swatches when we write. And so my criteria is based on writing color rather than swatch color. In a swatch, it's easily a 10. Oh, and then the flow of this ink, I'm gonna give it a 4. It was that bad. I mean, it was very bad. The comfort of my blue-green nebula is like most all of my Pro Gear Slims, they're not amazingly comfortable because they are a little light and small. So I would give it like an 8 for comfort. All right. So that is all of my pens for March and the review, or like my final thoughts on them, as well as my grading. So based on the grading scale, my top 3 pens for March is the Leonardo Momento Zero Paraiso Maldives, my Pilot Custom 823 Amber. Now I might not count this one as much because it didn't have any new ink, but that is runner-up. Let's see, the other good one was Lamy AL-Star Rose Gold LX with the Diamine Romania Red. And the third one, let's see, which one came out third? Yeah, it would have to be 2 10s. Well, I think it's like a tie between these two. But I use this one more and I like this color more. So I would say these are the top 3 in this, top 4 pens in this order, and then I'll just, add the Pilot Custom 823 because, it's just unmatched. I think any ink will go so great in the Pilot Custom 823. All right, well, that is all for my video today. Thank you so much for watching with me, and if you came to the very end here, thank you so much. Remember to hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.